Hello, my friends. We're visited by my cat Miso today, so I tried to include her in the frame. Today, I want to ask if we have a future as a people. Do we have a future? Is there a future? We want to ask this because depending on what answer we get, that will dictate how we live our lives, right? If we have a future as a people, as a humanity, right? If we're going to be here in another 100 years, 1,000 years, well, then let's purchase some more stock in the stock market. Let's plant more seeds. Let's plant more trees. Let's get comfortable. Let's plan for the future, right? And if we don't have a future, right? If everything is really going down the tubes, right? If we're really in crisis and if it really looks like things are going to go the wrong way, well, then I guess we need to start saving up on canned beans and dig out a nuclear fallout shelter. And we need to sell our stock in the stock market, right? These are just two different ways that we need to go. And I wanted to make this for a handful of reasons. Number one is that not for everybody, but for a lot of people, and perhaps for you, this viewer, there is a lot of crisis in the air. There's a lot of personal crisis and collective crisis, right? There's the environment, there's the climate, there's the politics, regardless of your political disposition, right? There's just, crisis in politics. Where else? AI, right? What's going on with AI? Why is it developing so quickly? What does it mean that it's developing so quickly? It's like every 3 months, there's this massive new technology. What does it mean for humanity? And there are many, many more. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And so I'm conscious of how, on some level, for our whole history, there's always been at least somebody out there in the over the last thousands of years, there's always been somebody saying, oh, like the world's going down the shitter, the world's going down the tubes, there's no hope for humanity, there's a total impending doom catastrophe thing, right? And yet humanity just continues to endure, from one year to the next. And so we do have that we need to acknowledge. But then we also need to acknowledge that these times are just more unique than ever before. They're incredibly unique for the reasons that I mentioned. And it feels like we're really, it's just unclear how things are going to go. There's all sorts of looming catastrophe, real catastrophe, like the climate crisis. Like, man, like that could just spiral out of control and be really bad for a lot of reasons. And that's just one of them. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this. And then another reason is that as a result of what we're discussing here, it's like, it's not so nice to hear and it comes off as alarmist, which I'm not trying to alarm anybody. And I don't really think I'm telling you anything you don't know, quite honestly. But it does lead us to a sort of position of powerlessness. After all, what can we do? Here we are, just you and me, just regular people watching, trying to live our lives, as all of this stuff happens, as we watch our experts and professionals and, government officials and CEOs do what they're doing, and there's nothing that we can do about it, or at least seemingly. And there's a sense of powerlessness and helplessness as we just look on as all of this happens. And then it brings us to this like strange sort of liminal question of how do we live our lives, where, you and I, we're just living our lives. Okay, we go out, we go to work, and, we come back and make some dinner and maybe watch something amusing on the TV while all of this takes place, while it feels like the whole thing's crumbling around us, and just asking ourselves, like, are we just acting like business as usual? Are we just acting normal and pretending as if this isn't happening? And so I wanted to address that. And then finally, because there's just so many layers to this, but this is about it, we're almost there, is that I want to know where self-development and self-actualization fits into all this, right? Because I feel a little funny myself, like coming online and telling you how to set habits and prepare for the future, but do we have a fucking future or not, right? I want to talk to you about following your dreams and following your destiny, right? But are we going to have some sort of water shortage soon? Like, do we even have the luxury of worrying about our potential and our destiny and becoming the greatest and best that we can be? So I gave this a big long think, and I've tried shooting this video a million times, and I think we're there now. So we're going to get into it. Let's get into it. So my name is Brent, if we've never met. And as I was saying, I'm a self-actualization coach. And what this means is that if you feel like you're not doing what you came here to do, and if you feel like you're not doing what you feel like you're capable of, like you came into the world with a sense of potential and capability, and it's not like materializing and you don't know why, and there's like this confusion and frustrating element, I work with people on that. I help you bridge from hither to thither. And so if you're interested in learning more, there's a link below. So I figured the best way to go about this would be to offer my best take on how we came to where we are, because this will inform what we're doing and it will inform our discussion on the future. So we'll make this as generalized and as quick and as broad as possible. So there is an amazing, super cool, super interesting trilogy of novels called the Ishmael series by a writer named Daniel Quinn. And this trilogy offers a story of how we came to. So I'll be summarizing what I learned from there here now. And the basic gist of it is that our current society all operates from one psychology that's called the taker psychology, the taker mind frame, like as in to take things. And that came from our pre-civilization era. So somewhere some 20 to 30,000 years ago, Earth was populated by tens of thousands of tribes that were just spread across the world. And there was one tribe that ostensibly discovered one very important and consequential technology, which was the ability to take food that was foraged, cultivated, hunted, and put it under lock and key, to store food surpluses and to dole it out to workers. And this was new, and it did two very important things. One is that it created the very first division between the ruling class and the worker class, where the ruling class was in charge of food and decided what happened with the food and gave it out as a form of a payment for a job well done, and then they kept the rest. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that as a result of keeping food surpluses and stockpiling it, it meant that our species, our particular tribe in the species, was able to grow. We were able to multiply. This is what happens, and Quinn goes into great detail in the trilogy. This is what happens to any species, any animal in any ecosystem, where if you increase the food supply, the species, the head count increases as well as a result of increasing the food supply. And so that's what happened to us. And so our tribe grew, our population grew, and with it we became more powerful. We were able to overpower others in the area, and we were able to spill over into greater territory and just grow that way in sort of a cancerous growth. There's a cancer style of that growth where it's an unchecked growth that just went on forever in an unstoppable way. And so that's what we are now. That just became our global family now. That's the legacy that we carry with us. And so part of that psychology, an important element of it is, as we expand, as we grow, it's like there's a self-justified quality about that expansion where we say, if I can do it, then I may as well. Why not? If I can have it, if it's there for me to have, if it's there for me to take, that's the taker mindset. If it's there for me to take, I should, because I can. Why not? And there, you can almost, as I explain this to you, right? I want you to almost feel into your own psychological legacy, your own psychological ancestry, right? It's right there in all of us. It's like, oh, if I can take it, then I should. And so this is played out over the years, right? This is one way of explaining the early Europeans crossing the Atlantic to settle new land and get new resources, right? It's like, well, there's land to be had. We should go get it. There's resources. We should go get it. If there are people there, if we're stronger than them, we should overpower them because we can, or either kill them or assimilate them or enslave them, whatever we want. And so this has continued, and now, of course, all the land is settled, but now it continues in a handful of different forms. So one form is, say, to keep us addicted to things. So let's say you start a burger company, and let's say you start to franchise out that company so you can open up more spots. It's like, okay, I may as well since I can. And then say that company grows into a corporation and gets larger and larger and opens franchises across the world to the thousands or tens of thousands. And then as the population becomes more savvy to health and disease and how to eat well, then that company, in order to keep growing and to maintain its consumer base, and in order to just keep growing and becoming bigger, has to start engineering its food in order to be more yummy, in order to be more delicious, to make it, say, saltier and fattier. And they need to be very deliberate about how they make it. Not because they care about you, but because they care about getting you to continue coming back to buy more. And so, of course, I'm talking about the legacy of McDonald's. And not just McDonald's, but any big junk food, fast food franchise. So the other quality about this taker mindset is that there, in addition to that self-justified kind of sense about it, there's a belief that there's no need to care about or empathize with that which we are expanding into. So the people that we're assimilating or killing or driving away, the people that we're serving our burgers to or selling our soda beverages to, selling our cigarettes to, there's no need to care. And so, and what a lot of them will do is put on the guise of caring, right? Like they'll use the common parlance of caring and will create advertisements that imply that they care, but really ultimately they don't, because if they did, probably they would have to go out of business. There's an interesting quality about integrity here, where it's like, if you don't have integrity, then it's easier to make money. To have integrity and to make money with integrity is almost like putting obstacles in your path. To create success with integrity is to put obstacles in your path that you need to overcome. And so one way of conceptualizing the future that we're stepping into is this movement from a lack of integrity into integrity, and how it's a difficult step. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but this is just a taste of it. So anyway, so that's just one example, the fast food, okay, and soda and junk food. And then of course, you have companies that are dedicated to keeping our attention, right? So this is our social media empires, as well as our technology empires, those that create smartphones and laptops and these things. And of course, we can also lump in Netflix and Amazon and Meta and all of these places where their job, of course, is to keep expanding, to keep making money, to keep increasing the rate at which they're making money, right? So I want you to really see here how it's not about finding that enough space. It's about just expanding forever as far as you can. And what that means is developing better and better technology to arrest our attention and keep it, and to activate our emotions and make us feel unsafe, and to keep us off of our center so that we can be much more easily manipulated, and we can be held in our isolated little social media bubbles so that they can continue to harvest our attention. And as I say all this to you, I know that it comes off as sort of a conspiratorial kind of thing, but it's really not, right? Like, it's all of this is just out for all of us to see. I think I'm not stating anything that's not common knowledge. And none of this should come as a surprise to anybody. We're just really laying out the state of things, how it came to be. And I guess one of the major points that I want to make here, there's two major points from this point. One is this, it's that it's not these people's fault. So thinking of your Zuckerbergs and Bezos and, people at the very top of Coca-Cola and McDonald's, like, it's not exactly precisely speaking their fault in that it doesn't make them bad, evil, villainous people that they operate this way. Because the truth is, and I would like for you to really internalize this, is that we all like to think of ourselves as nice people. But if we were in those positions, especially if we were in positions, say like Zuckerberg's, where he just got like super incredibly successful and rich really young, before moving through any major trials and tribulations, without really doing any major spiritual work or psychological inner work or healing of your inner wounding, this kind of thing, then of course that makes a person corrupt. Of course it makes a person at a low level of integrity and just, moving on behalf of the expansion taker mindset. That's what would have happened to us, right? And nobody's above that. So it's not about making these people bad or wrong or into villains, because that's a form of blame and it takes the power out of our hands. And our big attempt here is to put the power back in our hands, but it is just to see it as it is. So that's one thing. So they're not villains and they're not bad people, and it's not about villainizing them. But at the same time, if there's any doubt about it whatsoever, we need to decide for real and for sure that we cannot look to these people to grow up and to find their integrity. Because these people have their private islands and they have their bunkers, right? If the whole world goes to shit, they have bunkers with food and plants, and they can sustain themselves, and they can take a little plane with their loved ones and go and ride out the whole thing while we just all die out here, right? And they do have bunkers. Like, it is worth noting, like, they have thought of this and they have bunkers. They have contingency plan Bs. And so in the meantime, they're totally happy and able to just keep expanding against the aching boundaries of the earth, right? There was I wish I could find it again. I really wanted to find it and I couldn't. There was a video that surfaced of a oil company executive. I want to say it's Exxon. It may have been, but it was an oil executive who was talking about how they hired lobbyists to suppress the emergence of climate change science and to put a lot of doubt on it so that it wouldn't affect their ability to keep extracting oil and to burn it. And so as a result of that, that was a major contribution to the global climate crisis that we have now. But they were able to make a boatload of money along the way. So these people are not going to save us. These people have their own plans. They have no intention of stopping. And they're not and the thing is that if you've been getting so incredibly rich off of acting from a low integrity place, which is what they've all been doing, otherwise they wouldn't be where they are and we wouldn't be where we are, then it's not so easy to switch from a low integrity mode to a high integrity mode. Like, for example, imagine you're the CEO of McDonald's and you've been serving food that just creates disease in people. Like, what do? Like, it's more expensive now to make food that won't cause disease. And if you make food that is not so addictive to eat, then you may not have as many customers, and it may cause your company to shrink, to diminish. So what do you do in that case? So, so my point is we can't look to them. So what do we do then? Okay. Another thing that we can't do is, in addition to not waiting for Bezos or Zuckerberg to save us from our situation, we can't also wait for some other leader to emerge. We can't wait for, say, a Bernie Sanders or an AOC or some politician to rise up and lead us, and I really feel like a lot of us are waiting for that. We're waiting for a leader, a real leader to help us course correct and to avert the major crises that we're staring down. And I mean, that would be cool if that happened. Someone with like a huge boatload of charisma just really rode in on their big horse and saved the day. That would be super cool. But I think we should plan on that not happening. Don't you agree? And instead, and this is really This is staring us in the face this whole time. We are that, aren't we? We are the saviors, aren't we? Obviously. It's on us. So our job is to know that nobody's coming to save us. Nobody's coming. We're on this trajectory, we're headed to the edge of the cliff, and it's on us. It's on us to see that and to course correct. And so now we can talk about how that would look. So first of all, a pill that we need to swallow is that understanding this and offering our contribution to this new future that we want to create together has the effect of voting, where the thing that makes voting powerful, the thing that makes voting a successful thing, is that all of us act as if our own individual vote mattered. Even though the reality is, if one single person sat out and didn't come to vote, but everybody else did, then the result would be the same either way. But if everybody act that way and then stayed home, then voting would not work, and then we would just end up with a default sort of thing. So this means becoming aware of our responsibility to create this new future, really becoming aware that we are responsible, we are the savior, and it's on us. And to do this, when we do this, we empower ourselves. And when we do this, we are empowering our immediate vicinity. And when we do this, we become a role model and a form of leader for everybody else around us. And so what I envision as we talk about this is that as more of us become aware of this, and as more of us become self-responsible and really take it into our own hands, then that sense of empowerment, we can start to emanate it with our being. Not in the sense that we come up and preach the way I'm preaching to you right now. We don't get on big soapboxes necessarily, although you can if you like. But we just emanate it with our being. We just communicate, yeah, this is something we can do. We really can. We really, really, really can. We can band together. As an example, imagine if all of us, and I'm looping, just for the minute, I'm looping in Canada and the US. So all of us in North America. Imagine, say, 30 or so million of us all came together and decided that the billionaire class needs to pay more in taxes. And they should not be allowed little tax breaks that allows them to get away without paying any taxes. Imagine we all got together and just as a unified people said, no more of that. It would happen. And it would be amazing, right? And there would be just this wonderful sense of justice. And I think it's really something a lot of us can agree on. So this is just one small example. So I want to touch quickly on the different forms of disempowerment. And so I have a list of 5 forms of disempowerment that the taker psychology and the ruling class keeps us in, that as long as we continue in these different forms of disempowerment, we won't unify. And we will stay on the current trajectory that we're on. The current trajectory for which there is not a future. And so they are as follows: isolation, addiction, shame, fear, and blame. So the idea here being that as long as we stay in isolation, as long as we stay in addiction, as long as we stay in shame, as long as we stay scared, as long as we stay in blame, then we will be disempowered, and we will not find our power, and we will not act from our power, and we will not offer our greatest contributions, and we will not usher ourselves into this new future. That is disadvantageous for the ruling class. It is. It's disadvantageous. They're not interested in it. So how would this work? And this is something that I would invite you to contemplate for yourself. This is really interesting to think about. This is a really important thing to internalize, but just give a few ideas to illustrate. It's like, okay, isolation. So, like there's this cliche that Gen Z don't really like getting on the phone, and millennials too, don't like getting on the phone and calling people. And they don't like small talk, when you run into somebody like a neighbor, and they don't like to make small talk. We prefer to go to the self-checkout aisle in the grocery store and the drugstore instead of getting checked out by a person. And, we feel scared of talking to people, and we just want to go out, get our thing, come home and watch our thing on TV and live in this sort of isolated way. Well, how would the ruling class benefit from this? Well, they'd benefit from it in the sense that we wouldn't unify. They'd benefit from it where we would get our sense of fulfillment and entertainment from our phones, our entertainment, social media, the internet, everything on there, instead of from each other. And we wouldn't experience that fulfilling quality that comes from spending time around a campfire, just as an example, with people that we love. Right? The more isolated we can become, the more our attention can be harvested. Addiction. How does the ruling class benefit from addiction? Well, that's much more clear. It's like we just keep spending money on things that destroy our health. Soda, alcohol, junk food, food that's poisonous, nicotine, so on and so forth. Shame. If we stay ashamed, if we don't feel good about ourselves, if we hate ourselves, then it kind of keeps us in this rat race, and it makes us easy to be manipulated because we can be sold things that will make us feel like we're better than other people, or at least equal with other people, because we're laboring under this idea that we're not equal to other people. And so what can people sell us in order to help us feel like we have more status? Well, cars, clothes, all these sorts of things. Fear. How does fear benefit the ruling class? Well, if we're scared, then we can be manipulated. And not only can we be manipulated, but we can be hypnotized, right? We can be made more scared. And then we can be told what the solutions are. And then we can be herded like cattle to do what we're told to do. And then blame. Blame is the biggest one. Where it's like, who do we blame for our problems? Do we blame the other side of the political aisle? Do we blame the ruling class? You remember I was talking about that earlier. Do we blame our parents? Do we blame our neighbors? Do we blame our upbringing? Do we blame the system? Right? Anywhere in our psychology, and you have to be so honest about this, right? Because it can exist on so many subtle levels. Wherever there's blame, there's disempowerment, because now they're responsible. Now they are why everything is so bad. And so now we have to get rid of them, or teach them, or sue them, or get an apology from them, or do something to, get their comeuppance so that I can be okay again, so that I can get my power back. This keeps us divided, see? This shows up in the way that you otherize people. I'm on this really big mission to talk about the suffering and conflict that comes when we otherize people. Otherization just refers to like the person or the people out there that you see as other than you, not me, not my kin. As we become more conscious as a people, that sense of other diminishes and diminishes and diminishes and is replaced with kin until you just see everybody as a global family, which is what we are. We're all just a family. We don't necessarily agree with each other. We don't necessarily have to like each other, but we're still just a family. Something that we do have going for us, and this is just my hot take. This is just my hypothesis, but I really think this is true. This is something that has been long prophesized if you follow any sort of spiritual, occult kind of speakers and books out there where they talk about the dawn of human consciousness, the new earth. This is Eckhart Tolle's other book, where humanity is undergoing growth pangs. Humanity is growing in consciousness. Humanity is becoming more conscious as a whole. Now, it's not like evenly spread across the world, right? There's a certain spearhead that you find in certain places. And I know also it doesn't look that way because you may look at the news and you may look at everything and say, oh, no, humanity is becoming less conscious over time. But that's really just the surface level of it, right? Like the quality about becoming more conscious, becoming a more conscious individual is that as you become more loving, more centered, more aware, more grounded, more aware of spirit, more healed, right? You are less likely to yell. You're less likely to yell at people. You're less likely to make a big fuss and draw a lot of attention to yourself. And you speak in more nuanced ways instead of like, meh, 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 right? So that meh, 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 like that's what we're seeing now. That's what's on its way out. That's what's being healed. And slowly and quietly and gradually and inexorably everywhere, consciousness is coming online. And consciousness is isolated, right? Because it doesn't announce itself. And I'm becoming more and more of the suspicion that there are a lot of closet hippies in the world, you know, with your woo-woo beliefs. This is absolutely the case for me. You know, I speak a lot here on this channel about, you know, navigating the desire to talk about mysticism and balancing it against, you know, validity claims. You know, is it possible to be a mystic and to kind of back up your stuff when the scientists and the rationalists come to poke holes in it? But nevertheless, humanity's waking up. Humanity's becoming more spiritual. Humanity's becoming more loving. And so that means growing in consciousness. And so that means that sense of others diminishing. It also means a few other things. It means making more holistic decisions. So instead of making taker style decisions where you just help yourself to whatever there is and who cares about the externalities, now it's like, oh no, I think holistically. We make decisions that concern everybody. And it, you know, that sounds like it'd be incredibly difficult, but not necessarily, right? It's like, you know, say you want to open an ice cream parlor, and let's say you want to serve organic ice cream. You can serve organic ice cream that is still sweet. It's still a dessert. You don't want to eat too much of it, but at least it's not made with pesticides. It's made from the dairy from cows that are treated ethically and lovingly. And maybe it's a little bit more expensive, but so you can't sell it so much, but maybe more and more people who become more conscious will buy it, and they will see the value in spending more money on higher quality ice cream. Just in the same way that there's a certain population of people that spend more money, myself included, on higher quality eggs from chickens that are treated better and not injected with hormones, and their beaks aren't fucking cut off their face. Good Lord. Yeah, I'll spend another $2. Right, because it matters to us now. We think more holistically. Now imagine as humanity becomes more conscious and makes more holistic decisions, opens more holistic businesses, and purchases more holistic products, then eventually we can bring the price of them down. And eventually the lower consciousness products, even though they're cheaper, they can get weeded out. And as more people become more conscious, we could say, vote on more legislation that causes lower quality eggs to be more expensive or to be as expensive as organic eggs. And then what would happen then? Well, then all the chickens would be treated well, and the businesses that treat the chickens well would flourish. And then we would eat higher quality eggs and be more healthy as a population, right? It's just an example. Becoming more conscious also means asking higher quality questions. So a lower quality question is, how can I get more? Like, how can I, you know, just take more and have more, right? Higher quality question might be how to create success for myself and everyone. And yet an even higher quality question would be, how can I create success, but can that success be an aspect of what I'm actually looking for? So first of all, I mean, we'd start asking, hey, like, what am I doing here, right? A higher quality question, a high consciousness question is, why am I here? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? What do I want? What's the most important thing to me? How do I, you know, and the things that I want, why do I think I want them? What do I think they would get me if I got them? What's that? Oh, I see. Fulfillment, safety, love, security, home, wellness, stability, consciousness. What's the most important thing? Locating that, directing our priority towards that, and then letting success be a byproduct of that. This is one of the main aspects of actualization coaching, if you'll forgive the plug. So do we have a future or not? We do have a future if we create it. We create it if we empower ourselves. We create it if we become our own saviors. We create this future by accepting that we are only one of many, but we are role models and we are leaders and we are keynote setters. Even you listening to this now, you should know it's not common for people to be listening to this kind of thing. I've been going on for a long time now, right? This is not like, what we would call super exciting, stimulating material, right? I mean, it is for me. But you're listening to this, right? So you're a leader, you're a role model. You can do it in any way that makes sense for you, in any way that feels natural for you. And now we can take this idea of success and bring it back in, right? Because before there was that weirdness that we were discussing earlier about how, we're just like conducting our life as usual. And like, it feels like the world is collapsing around us and we're just like watching Netflix and eating our food and like, okay, is everything okay? Right? This feels so weird. Now it's like, no, like, here's your job. Here's your responsibility. Create success for yourself. Actualize your potential. Offer what you're here to offer. Create holistically. Think holistically. And most importantly, keep some of your attention on this future that we're creating as a people. Let yourself be an energetic vote toward it. Believe in it. It is real. It is possible. We're not beyond repair. You can emanate all as well. And you can walk this sort of strange line between like, yeah, like the Titanic is sinking. Like we do have to switch course. Otherwise it won't be good. We can have that be true and also say, and yet all continues to be well. All is well. This is what we're doing. We can still keep our humor. Everything can still be light. Everything can still be funny. And now our intention is harmonized. And this is broad enough. This is not even a political thing, right? Like I don't think I'm making any massive political statement for which anyone needs to argue. Like if anything, I'm only saying stuff that's so totally obvious that I'm hardly introducing anything new. And I'm conscious of that, right? But I think the piece that I so much wanted to talk about with you here is that if we all look at that future and create it together, then we can. And we can talk about it and articulate it and enunciate it and bring it into being by offering our attention toward it. Would you do me a big favor and hit that like button for me? If you're interested in working with me one-on-one, if you want to find out more, book yourself a free one-off session. There's a link for it below. And we'll just talk about what it would look like for you, what I could do for you. If it's appropriate, if it feels like it's a fit, you can go for it. If not, no problem. I'll give you some stuff you can use on your way out. Check out the Sovereign Creators Collective, which is a group coaching membership that's geared precisely towards this. This is what that group is about and for. And that's all. Thank you very much, my friends. Catch you on the next one.